And welcome out to Trading Justice, a financial markets podcast that we get together each and every week and talk about what's going on in the markets that week from a news perspective, technical perspective, fundamental perspective, anything that we think that you guys, as our audience, needs to hear about from the coaches over here at Tackle Trading and break it all down for you. Got three brothers here to have our weekly podcast. Really looking forward to that. Before we dive into our conversation for today, a couple things I do want to promote. Number one, it is a new year, 2026. We rung in the new year last year, or last week, I should say, and we still have a few days left in our holiday sales event at Tackle Trading. So if you want to lock in your monthly pro subscription, your annual subscription, and get a savings, basically a 43% discount from paying for it for the whole year, you're going to get that discount over the next 5 days. That promotion ends in 5 days from this recording, which is on the 10th of January. So if you're hearing the podcast, you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you head over to tackletrading.com/store. You can click the store button on the top or the link in the description below, and you can go right there as well and pick up one of our systems or, one of our pro memberships, or just make sure that you're getting the best pricing available at Tackle Trading. One other thing is we've been holding our webinar series for the holiday season, and we've been doing a webinar each and every week. We had a great AMA last week that I really enjoyed being a part of. Thought it was just a wonderful conversation. Must watch and must go back and watch that, you guys, if you've not seen it, or even if you saw it one time. I thought it was really great. You'd probably get something out of it watching it two or three times, quite frankly. Matt is holding a live session tonight, though. So if you're hearing this recording, you probably missed it or you saw it one way or the other. You're going to have to go catch the recording to see it again. Spread trading, simple strategy, steady profit, recorded January 5th, and you're going to want to catch that recording from Coach Matt. Looking forward to having, just a great webinar here tonight, Matt, and all of those types of things. Without further ado, let's bring in the coaches here for our podcast, Matt and Mark. Let's start with you, Matt. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, Tim. I'm excited to be here for another amazing recording of the podcast and excited to have the conversation with two amazing individuals and traders of their own right. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Mark, how are you?
I am better than Nicolas Maduro, but not as good as oil services companies' price action today.
That's a
So
good
Gotcha.
range.
Okay. Somewhere
That's
in the
definitely a
middle.
good range.
I'm somewhere in the middle.
So
Yeah.
he's somewhere between heaven and hell right now.
I'm a doji. I'm a
Okay.
living doji.
I don't know if that's a doji, bro. That's like one of those big,
A
tall. What's the
gravestone
tall
doji, I
man?
think you just
Yeah,
described.
a gravestone doji. That's
Yep.
right. All right. Speaking of technical analysis, which is where candlestick analysis comes in, I do want to get into market analysis real quick and give everybody a technical read. Whenever the news gets wild and crazy out there, Matt, one of the first things I do is go to the charts. A lot of the charts will smooth out that volatility in the rhetoric or whatever is happening in the world, and we can see what the market is reacting to. What are you seeing here in the S&P 500?
You know, in a world of chaos, the truth of the market is obviously done from a price action perspective. I've said it for many, many, many years. It's something I believe in. Truth is not in what people say, it's in what people do, and that's what price action is. It's the visual representation of people's decisions to buy or sell something. And when you are looking at the technical read right now, I actually think the technical read is something that is extremely interesting. I think you have to first start from a trend perspective. In the short term, we have a neutral trend. In the intermediate, we have a neutral trend. What that typically leads to from a market perspective is saying, okay, to really kind of start a new trend, you got to break out. And the levels are very well known here. You got to break out of 7K to start that next trend, to see the continuation of what we have been seeing recently. It really starts with the breakout of 7K. But that's the trending analysis. Then you have to look at the pattern. And there's two patterns that are happening right now that are very interesting to me. Number one is the overall pattern that we are looking at in the S&P 500. And what you would call this pattern is what we call an ascending triangle, where you have horizontal flatline resistance levels and an increase in support. That is called an ascending triangle. It is known as a continuation pattern, and it is one of the better continuation patterns out there. And what a continuation pattern does is it is once it breaks out, it continues the previous trend. And so you have an ascending triangle as we're starting this year. And if you're going to tell me every year we're going to start with an ascending triangle, I'm going to tell you, well, 80 to 85% of the time, we're going to have a pretty decent year because that's a really good continuation pattern. But in the immediate short term, you have a fractal pattern happening within the ascending triangle, and that's what is called a bull flag. And so you have this bull flag happening in the backdrop of the ascending triangle, which now has an increasing support level to it. And so the technical read here is one of calm before the storm. Calm being we're in a continuation pattern, the storm in front of a breakout. Because there's a point in an ascending triangle, in any triangle, whether we're talking about a moving average pinch, a symmetrical triangle like we have on the NASDAQ right now, or the ascending triangle we have on the ES right now, there's that moment in time that happens between is this a continuation pattern and is this something more akin to a reversal pattern? And that key point is always what happens at support. And you have this trend line happening right here where you connect the low points that kind of equate to the 50 period moving average. And so you have an ascending triangle with a bull flag going into a multiple time frame breakout. Aggressive traders are going to front run that breakout, but if you're more conservative and waiting on the breakout, I think that's perfectly fine. The level's well known at 7K.
hmm on the daily chart here, it's pretty clear on that ascending triangle, and even on the intraday stuff, Matt, you started to get some nice price action off of the bounce here today. If you're just a longer term investor, are you completely waiting for the breakout like you're talking about here? You're
Oh
waiting
yeah,
for
if you're
clear
if you're more on the
confirmation?
position side, like think the difference here is like, okay, day traders are always going to trade every day. Like that's they don't like they certainly do care about the backdrop technically on the daily and the weekly chart, but it's another day that ends in why day traders are going to do what they do. But swing traders going to be really keen on the flag here. Like the swing
hmm
traders are really looking at this flag going into the breakout because swing traders aren't going to wait on the breakout. If swing traders wait on the breakout, you're giving up too much return. You're taking on too much risk just for the additional slight percentage in probability. And so swing traders are certainly more active in the flag. But if you think to like the turtle traders, Tim, the position traders, the investors out there, I don't think it pays to be aggressive inside pattern development because you could very easily give up support on a bad news day here. And so I do think the position trader, the longer term investor, anything longer duration than a swing trade is really looking at the breakout more than anything. They're looking at the breakout and saying, I don't really care what happens underneath 7K as long as you don't give up something of important. But I will look to add upon, I will look to get more confident. I'll look to push it to the middle a little bit upon that official breakout. So great question. I would say anything longer duration than a swing trader, simply just waiting on the breakout.
Mark, what's your read on this price action in the markets here?
From a theta perspective, which is what I do, it has been absolutely fantastic, and it's been fantastic for a while. I love how the week started with, increasing breadth. I mean, it was hard to not find a bullish setup out there. Materials or stock like CMG, restaurant stocks. When you get a candle like the one on RSP today, you're going to have some choice out there, your choice out there. And what was even better is that the defensive stocks took the day off the start of the week, and your cyclical areas were just really robust. We'll talk about precious metals. They were good. Energy stocks were fantastic. It was just a really good environment. And so, the major indexes are setting up nicely. We'll see what tech does here. I have my questions on that. Talked about them recently in the Prediction Bot podcast. But your average stock, boy, it was all guns blazing to start the new year so far.
Hmm.
Yeah, my prediction, Mark had tech as one of the least producing sectors next year. I had tech as one of the leading sectors going into next year. I'm going to need this symmetrical triangle to break out. To you got a good lead, I will say, on that RSP breakout. Love the cyclical area breakout. It's going to be interesting to see secondary patterns developing. And one cautionary tale on the finance breakout to start the week, we do have earnings season happening next week, and Goldman Sachs, Bank of America. If you recall, last quarter was a quick start to earnings season. We have a quick start to earnings season again. So we get a lot of major banks coming out next week. So just a little caution if anybody's chasing finance there, we do have earnings season starting next week.
Do you guys believe in the January barometer type mindset of,
I
how
don't.
the year starts in the month of January is going to dictate it? Because like when you're saying the first 4 days of tech, it's do you guys care about that too much?
I'd say back in the day, 30 years ago, yeah, sure. Like slow moving world. We live in a very fast moving world. Policy changes at the macro level can happen very aggressively. Algorithms don't care about your January barometer, and 90% of the market is based on algorithms. And so, no, I would say no. I'd say no, but everybody has some degree of seasonality in them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we have our things we care about. Mark, what about you?
not at all. Nope, not at all.
Negative. All right. Well, then, moving on from the January barometer, 4 days in, it doesn't dictate the whole year, I guess.
Uh-uh.
We can live it day by day by day.
The next
All right. Now,
seasonality for me is February energy.
But I promise
okay.
you, had you had the first few days up, Tom Lee would be on CNBC talking about how it's going to be the greatest bull market ever because of the January effect, right?
Are you
Well,
watching
the first two
CNBC on
days have
Tuesday?
been up. He'll get out there.
So
All right, gotcha. What else you guys seeing technically across any sectors, commodities, anything else that you want to bring up to the team here? Mark, anything grabbing your attention that really, is a market driver?
yeah, we're going to talk about it here in a second. We're going to talk about the energy stocks, which I think had fascinating price action today. We'll save that a little bit for when we talk about Venezuela. But no, I thought Matt's breakdown, and he does such a good job prepping you for the week to come, right? I read the newsletter this weekend. I knew that we were at a support level. I knew that the price action today, if you got some intraday liftoff, could produce today's results, right? He does such a fantastic job on it, and just it is worth being a pro member. It is literally the best technical read in the market. I know I use it as a consumer,
I
so
think it is, and
I
I'm
do. I
biased,
really
but I'm
do.
not
I
going to be
really
shy
do.
about it. The
And Matt,
technical
I
update in the
don't get
newsletter
into
is
this
amazing.
stuff like you. I'm like thematic in this, but I read it, every week as a consumer.
If you want a good technical read on the market every single week to have an understanding of exactly what the probabilities are, what the patterns are, what the trends are, what the levels are, what the indicators are telling, there's not a better newsletter on the technical side of the equation than what we do, because it's not just about the write-up, it's also a 20-minute video detailing every aspect of the technical condition in the S&P 500. And I take a lot of pride in putting it together, but that's not the only thing that we talk about in the newsletter, because Tim, you asked a question, what stands out to you from a sector perspective? And the only thing I wanted to say honestly is if you want to know every aspect about sectors, watch the sector rankings video every single week as I detailed that literally for our pros every single week. What's getting upgraded? What's getting downgraded? Which areas are getting a better technical edge? Which ones are fighting against support levels? And so the sector rankings, and then we obviously rank
Yeah,
all the
and
sectors
just like
every
what
single
got
week as
what
well.
got an upgrade heading into the week? Energy did. Why? Because did we know that Trump was going to invade Venezuela? No, but the chart told us, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And if that's, bring it back to what we started with. If you're not a pro member of Tackle Trading, this is a time you can lock all that in so you can get that each and every week for all of 2026. We are somewhat burying the lead here. We keep hinting at
Yeah.
oil and energy and all this kind of stuff. Let's get right into the Venezuela stuff. Gold, silver, all the other areas of the market we can come back to as needed and necessary. But, we did have a major catalyst event, happen over the weekend. Impacts more things than markets, but we're here to talk about the market impact on it. Mark, what happened in Venezuela this weekend?
Well, I talked to Matt for hours this weekend as the events occurred, where U.S. What was the name? I don't want to disrespect them because there's probably going to be a movie made out of them. Was it
Oh, I
Delta
can't
Force
wait for the movie. Are you kidding me? I am so
Delta
excited
Force
about
One?
this movie.
Is it
I,
Delta
I don't
Force?
know what they named it, but
It's like Delta Force One, the name of the elite, group. But anyways, went in to Venezuela, uh, captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife, arrested them on felony charges. Didn't lose a troop in the process. Didn't lose, as Donald Trump liked to brag about, and rightfully so. Didn't even lose a piece of equipment in the very effective raid. Effectively, we did a regime change in Venezuela. The vice president of Venezuela is
we
now
do
the
a regime change. Are we certain? Oh, we
yes. We
did a
well we there's somebody else in charge.
same regime though, right?
Same regime,
Okay, I
but
just want to
but
because I
so
need help on defining whether
all
this
right, and
is
let's talk about
representing
that.
change or change.
Because there's a lot of pieces to break down on
Yeah.
this. But what
I'll, I'll
happened?
I'll I'll save my questions because they'll just throw in a little bit of
Because
chaos. But continue.
what happened is we took Nicolas Maduro. He's in New York City. He's going to be charged with a variety of criminal offenses. He will no longer be the leader of Venezuela. The vice president is acting as she is acting as the current president of Venezuela. And that is what happened. And it happened in very short order. You wake up on a Saturday morning, it was already done, wasn't it, Matt?
Yeah, it was. It was quite amazing. The news kind of hit late that night, and it was late that night, and nobody really knew what was going on until the morning. But lots of open questions, and it was kind of crazy. Yeah.
Mhm. So why does it matter for the markets? We have this, military, event. Obviously, it's going to impact some crude oil, reserves and all that kind of stuff. The market's going to react to it. What are we reading from it from a market perspective? Because this happens all the time. If you're brand new to investing, you've been around for 30 years, some headlines, some major catalyst, something can happen. And it can lead you to some conclusions that may or may not be accurate. And one of the things we always come back to is price action and things like that. So, Matt, why does it matter, and what are we seeing from the crude oil response here?
Well, I mean, crude oil is a little bit of a difficult thing to break down based on this because typically when you see increasing geopolitical activity, specifically around an oil producer, like if the exact same scenario were to happen in Iran, Iraq, or an oil producing country in the Middle East, crude would be up 10% today. Like
Mhm.
it would be up 10% because that disruption would increase their production, would decrease their production. And so you would have a spike in crude oil. We're not really seeing that here this week, and I don't think there was a lot of anticipation for a spike in crude oil, despite Venezuela having the number one oil reserves in the world, and this obviously being about oil. Like I don't want to mince words here. The president said this was about oil. Am I correct there, Chucky?
Oh no, I mean, like his transparency on the subject, was very, very, very direct, right? He talked about in his press conference that lasted about an hour, maybe a little bit longer than an hour. I mean, he mentioned oil, at least 10 times in various different contexts. Uh,
He took questions that were not about oil and turned them into answers about oil. Like that's what he did in the press conference.
he
So
made it clear that
like
this was
like
about.
I'm not mincing words here. It's about oil. I said it was going to be about oil. Mark, I've told you for 2 decades that the Iraqi situation was only about oil. It's always about oil with these oil producing countries. And so when you're talking about oil here, the ultimate question that I think people have is why isn't oil up 10%? Well, because Venezuela is not an oil producing country. They have massive oil reserves, but they only produce about what, 800,000 barrels of oil on a daily basis, Chucky?
Less than 1% of the global daily supply.
And so you're not
Currently,
really, and of that 800,000 barrels, what percentage of it goes specifically to China?
out of the largest percentage they consume themselves, and
I
then
don't care about domestic
but as
production. I
far
care
as
about
what they actually ship out to China is the vast majority of
it's
it.
like
Yes.
80% of their oil goes directly to China. And so for people that are wondering why are we not seeing an impact on oil, I don't think you are anticipating an impact on oil because we're not talking about disruption of global oil supply. That's not what's happening here. And on secondarily, you're also talking about sending in the American oil companies to start pulling out more oil from the ground, which means supply will increase, not decrease over time. And so there's a little bit of a situation brewing in crude oil where from the pandemic until today, when you were trading energy, you really banked everything based on crude oil. If crude oil was stabilizing and neutrality, if crude oil would then break out, you would be like, okay, let's go jump on energy. Like it was one plus one equals two. Crude oil breaks, go pick your favorite energy component. Let's giddy up and go, go, go. And you caught some amazing trends like that. Now, I'm not sure that's the case moving forward because these energy companies are going to go down into Venezuela, and it's not going to be a swing trade down there, guys. We're talking long term. If people are expecting oil to be producing 2 million barrels by the end of this year out of Venezuela. That is not going to happen. This thing is going to take time. There's going to be difficulties along the way. There's no doubt about that. We can debate those things till the cows come home. But the unique situation here is it's going to be the American companies that do all the drilling. And so, yes, are they increasing oil supply over time over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Will they increase oil supply? The answer is yes. Well, that's going to cap the performance of what crude oil can do itself. That's number one. But number two, because that extra 1 to 3% of global oil supply is going to be produced not out of OPEC, but produced out of American energy companies, well, where does most of that revenue go? So yes, they are increasing global oil supply, but I'm willing to bet the average cost of a barrel where these U.S. energy companies are profitable drops by well over 10 to 15%.
Hmm, hmm.
So the
Good
average
stuff.
cost that they need to produce to be profitable is going to drop, even though the oil will drop. They will show higher profit margins.
Mark,
Yeah,
anything you want to add to
oh
It's
that?
yeah,
the it's the argument OPEC has had for literally decades.
Hmm.
and when you ask, why does this matter, which is, a question I think that every market participant asked themselves in some fashion or form over the last 48 to 72 hours, right? I mean, is this a, story that might not impact every single company, in the S&P 500? Sure, right? And
Yeah,
it's
of
not going to
course.
impact them equally. But Matt, what was the little news tidbit you heard about banks? Every single major bank sending a
Well, it's not
representative.
just what I heard, it's what I know. It's like somebody asked the question in the lounge today. Why are banks getting such a bid? Because when you look at kind of the market today and you look at kind of a heat map, and if you don't look at heat map, always look at a heat map. It's good policy to look at a heat map. When you're looking at the heat map today, you see kind of mixed day in general, a mixed day in general. A lot of that was due to some of the consolidation, selling pressure in healthcare and technology. But where's the biggest green sector? It's not energy. Energy has mixed data in it. It's actually finance. Finance was the biggest, most constructive sector here today. And so there was a question earlier today, why is finance like basic materials because silver, gold, all of that had a day up over 2%, but finance was right underneath that. Energy came up 1% in total. But in finance, I don't think people understand that right behind the energy company is going to be the big banks down in Venezuela because that's what they're going to do. If they're going to start doing business with American companies, because a couple open questions we have is number one, is this a regime change? Is the opposition leader going to take charge? Or is Trump just care about whoever does more American business? We don't know those things yet. What we do know is that anybody who runs that country, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong here, but whether it's the vice president under the Maduro regime, which I would have questions for our political leaders if we pull this off and we don't regime change. I would have questions for that. That we do this, but we leave the same regime in place when we should be backing the opposition leader, in my opinion. That's a side conversation, but regardless of what happens from that political perspective, Mark, would you agree that whether it's the vice president who is part of the Maduro regime, or whether it's the opposition leader, or whether it's the properly democratic leader from 24, would you agree that whoever runs Venezuela over the next 2 years, they have to be extremely pro-American business?
Yeah, I don't think there's any real debate about this one. President Trump has even threatened the new leader
Mhm.
that if she
He's
does
like, it
not,
will happen to you, if not worse.
but he basically said, and once again, you got to put aside whatever moral, ethical, whatever debate you want to have internally about whether on any of this. He has basically said, if you don't play ball with us, you're next, right? And so whoever is in charge in
Yeah,
Venezuela,
we're not here to debate the morality of the
yeah,
geopolitical conversation.
we are
That's a
Mhm.
different
the
podcast.
United States of America is committed to having Venezuela be a strategic asset in natural resources, geographical location, and a cut off of supply in oil shipping lanes to China, right? And and so United States is pot committed, in my opinion, here, which means they're going to be
You
able to
can't
get
you
what
can't do that opening salvo and not be pot committed. You
you're
have
You
to.
they're
gotta
they're
You have to
when
be
you
pot committed here. You can't send in the military, do all these fake outs and missile strikes and take out their air defense system and have 30% of our military assets in the region and not be pot
they
committed
can't
here.
have
yeah,
take backs. No take
No,
backs.
no,
no, not on this one.
not on this one.
All right.
No, and so like because there is the temptation, and rightfully so. You should always ask, because one of the early questions I asked on a Saturday morning to myself was, well, what happens if the new opposition leader doesn't give the United States what they want,
What was
right?
my answer when you asked me that?
And well, he was like, well, it was like,
They'll be
what are you
hanging out
talking
with
about?
Maduro here in about 2 weeks.
And so as the market today is starting the process of, okay, this is happening, this is real, who stands to benefit, and markets are faster than ever. We saw finance get a bid, including the credit card
Well,
companies, as the
yeah, let
market
me
opens
finish
up.
that point real quick there, Chucky, because the original question was, why finance? The obvious answer in terms of what areas of the market benefit the most from this, the
Mhm.
obvious answer is energy, and specifically refinery companies, like, in my estimation, Valero. Like, companies like that would stand to be the beneficiaries here initially. Drillers will certainly be a beneficiary over time, but I think initially it's the refinery companies, and secondarily it's the drillers. Mark would agree or disagree.
Well, and the equipment and services companies,
Yeah,
up
I
there.
put yeah, the equipment and services companies and the refineries is what I put 1A, 1B, and then the drillers. But I don't think what people understand is that if Venezuela is going to be much more open to American business, there's no bigger American business than going down to Venezuela and having financial companies sell financially backed products called mutual funds. And so, Tim, do you remember when you traveled to Malaysia?
Mhm.
Were you
Oh, very. I
Were
was just thinking
you
about that yesterday.
shocked at how many US based companies in the financial markets, meaning the financial space, were advertising mutual funds?
Um, Yeah, somewhat. I mean, it's really interesting. Even in general, I was shocked at how many U.S. businesses just had, extreme presence in Southeast
Mhm.
Asia. I don't know why I was shocked, but it was just
Same thing in
could have been
Thailand.
at a mall in New York City, quite
Yeah.
honestly, when I went to the mall in Kuala Lumpur. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like U.S. businesses
I
everywhere,
remember
U.S.
when I
mutual
went to
funds.
India. And the first I just got in the cab and we were taking this long journey to our hotel and we drove through the financial district. All I saw was advertisements on big old signs suggesting buy this mutual fund XYZ from Goldman Sachs, buy
Hmm.
this mutual fund from JP Morgan. And so it's not just the energy companies that are going to stand to benefit here with a government out of Venezuela that is more pro-America. And regardless of the conversation in how this is going on, the execution of it, the constitutional, the war powers, the all of that debate, which I find personally fascinating. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a negative thing to have a country in the Western Hemisphere be more pro-America. Like, I just don't feel that's a bad thing. And so finance and energy are the two spaces that I feel would stand to be the biggest beneficiaries from a pro-America government in Venezuela. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
It makes you
Could see
ask the
that.
question, is colonialism bullish? I mean, this is a question that I posed to you on over the weekend, Matt. It was one of my initial thoughts.
Well,
Uh,
and the reason we brought
and,
that
and what
up
makes you laugh about it? Because you laughed at this week and we had a good time with it, right?
because I said it was colonial.
Yeah, because colonialism bullish,
Mark
right?
asked me what historical narrative this fits in. And I said, the analogies against the Iraq War, there's certain commonalities there. But if you remember going into the Iraq War, our purpose there was nation building. That's what our
Hmm.
purpose was. And probably looking back, one of the mistakes we made in the early Iraq War after we arrested Saddam was we basically outlawed the Ba'ath Party. And that created a lot of chaos in the country that is still ongoing today, quite frankly. And so, are they righting that wrong here in Venezuela? Are they taking a more constructive perspective, a little bit more longer term? I think there's some open questions there, but I don't feel that Iraq is a great case study against what's happening in Venezuela because you're talking regime change, and the other one you're talking nation building. Those are two completely distinctly different things. And so when you think about what we're actually doing there so far, we're not doing a regime change because as of right now, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a very fluid situation, Mark, but we're backing the VP as of right now. Is that
We're
correct?
backing the VP as of now, and
Okay,
we
so
are
it's
going to
not
back
regime change.
whoever does business with the United States of
So it's
America.
not regime change.
It is not regime change.
Okay.
It's the
It's
installation
also
of.
not nation building like
It
Iraq,
is
correct?
certainly not nation building.
Okay, so it's colonialism.
How many
What was
times was
colonialism?
democracy mentioned in the press
British
conference?
by Trump, none. By
None.
Rubio, one. But when you look at colonialism, the British would go into a country, they would have a small military presence in that country, but they would have one so-called, leader, architect that the nation's government, which still basically ran the country, but reported into this one individual. And that kind of reminds me a little bit more of what we're doing right now, specifically with the Donroe Doctrine in South America. It represents far more colonialism than it does nation building or regime change as of right now. But that's just how I answered when Mark asked me what the historical analogies were.
You
Hmm.
wanted to buy stock in the British East India Company in the 18th century. As
Yeah.
Britain was,
Before
I'm
they
being
found the
dead
conclusion in
serious.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes,
Yes,
eventually the story
yes.
ends poorly, but you want to do, if Donald Trump, and I think this is setting the stage for, I mean, and this is not new, this is not secret. What was the documents from
I
several
do
months
think
ago?
colonialism is bullish, regardless of the moral activity behind
Yeah,
it.
but regardless of the more, I think colonialism is bullish as well. And as Donald Trump, and I think he tried to pen it himself, the Donroe Doctrine,
The
referring to the
Donroe
Monroe
Doctrine.
Doctrine of exerting America's
And this is real.
influence.
This is the
This is
official
real. This
policy
is
of the
not us
United
making a
States of
joke. This
America.
is,
Yeah.
and Donald Trump actually called it himself in the press conference, the Donroe Doctrine.
He hasn't stopped, by the way. He keeps on referring it to as the Donroe. And the Donroe Doctrine is the expansion of the Monroe Doctrine. And if you remember, the Monroe Doctrine was the philosophy that from sea to shining sea, that was America and that was ours, right? That was kind of the philosophy. Or do you guys agree with that?
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay. Donroe Doctrine takes it a step further to the entire Western Hemisphere.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Donald Trump's, I mean, there is a reason, and it was calculated that as soon as they seized the leader, who did they threaten? They threatened Mexico, they threatened Cuba, they threatened Colombia, they threatened Greenland in one shape, form, fashion, or another. The uh, the
All
desire,
four of those are
all
targeted,
four of
right?
those within a 24-hour period. The United States of America wants to exert its influence to secure natural resources, to secure the Western Hemisphere, to be, there to profit and enjoy the stability of them. That's bullish.
I think it's
That's
bullish too.
bullish.
And also, again, I don't want to get into the weeds of the political conversation, but at the end of the day, I don't feel it's a bad thing to ensure that America has influence in the Western Hemisphere. This is not the first time we've tried to kick out Russia or China from the Western Hemisphere. It goes all the way back to the Bay of Pigs, guys. Like in the 50s, we were wanting to kick out Russian influence out of Cuba. And then we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. This has happened for ever since the Cold War began, quite frankly. In fact, you can go back to the original American Revolution and try not to have too much European influence in our activities. So I don't think it's a negative thing to say we don't want Venezuela making deals with China to basically backstop China's energy production. I don't think that's a negative. But again, let's just continue. We don't need to get it too far into the
Yeah.
detail.
So why does it matter? I mean, I know we went off on a lot of tangents there, Tim, but it's the prevailing doctrine, that intersects with markets, right?
Wait till you hear what is going to happen next on the currency side of the equation in the why it's important conversation.
So
Hmm. Well, I mean, do you want to talk about that?
No, that's more about the pockets of influence. That's a podcast in and of itself, honestly.
you cannot get Matt talking currency, or
I won't stop.
like no.
There's too many thoughts up here.
When I do currency and Matt on a podcast, we start with the subject in the first 2 minutes.
Let me
Yeah.
That's
tell you the
all we're going to
historical
talk.
narrative. Sit down,
That's all
children.
we're going to talk about, though, and it's
Let's fireside
fascinating.
chat this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, war in general is a bullish thing.
War is bullish.
War has generally been bullish over the history of markets. Globalism, I'm
Net
not
expansion.
certain. In expansion, not always maybe, but I think it could be bullish. Um, Markets are looking like they're going to break out of this little triangle here, Matt. That's quite an impressive candle. And if it breaks 60, how's the energy sector look with that, by the way?
And
XLE.
the energy sector itself got a gap up situation on a breakout. And we were in the future stream last night with a bunch of our pro members at Tackle. And we do it every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right after the futures open, just to kind of see what the price action is after, reading the newsletter and, getting the technical read and seeing how it got changed and whatnot. But what I suggested last night, because we all knew energy was going to gap up. Like everybody in the world knew energy was going to gap up. The bid ask spread showed energy was going to gap up. A lot of stocks 10%, some one, some two, some three. But what I suggested was it's not the time to chase an energy gap. Like this isn't the space that you chase an energy gap. And the second thing is after the rush of all the information subsides, at the end of the day, these energy companies got a long road to traverse when it
Yeah.
comes to building the infrastructure and getting energy production out of Venezuela in an effective and efficient way. Because one thing we haven't talked about is to do so, you're most likely going to be need the U.S. military presence to do that.
Mm,
Do you believe that's
yeah.
the case? Because like in an
I do.
ideal, you know, because like so we install a uh
I think the first terrorist activity on a bombing of an energy
and so
company is
basic
going to absolutely force the hand. Yes, 100%. 100%. If you back if you back the Maduro regime simply because the VP agrees that they're going to be more pro-America instead of pro-communist China, well, isn't the opposition party going to have something to say about that? The individual that just won the Nobel Peace Prize for her influence against the Maduro regime? Like, aren't they going to have some issue with that, Mark?
yeah, yeah, no, I mean it makes sense, you know, and it's
There's
one of
no
the
way
things,
you don't create conflict here. There's no way.
you know, and the energy thing, you know, this is a long road. And if the one thing that I'm very much looking forward to before I, you know, commit serious money to the, you know, services and that is just progress on the front, right? Not whether or not we're going to have a puppet in Venezuela, because we are.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. You know, just who
I
wants to
just really
play
hope
ball?
it's the opposition, not
It's
Maduro's
when
VP.
energy companies signal themselves that yes, you know, start to hear that positive rhetoric. And I don't need to hear much. I just need to hear some positive rhetoric that yes, this is
See,
a go.
and for me, it was more simple than that. The breakout was going to be extended on a gap, and I feel secondary development and a pullback's better on a tradable side situation here.
Mhm. I love that finish right there because for me, I'm fascinated with everything that's going on, just like you guys are talking about. And I've got thoughts about Donroe doctrine and whatnot. But at the end of the day, as an investor, I have to focus on the charts, like we talked about earlier. Our job is to kind of break down the market response to it and those types of things. And we're waiting for the breakout on the S&P 500 off that triangle you talked about. Energy is gapped up and is showing me, its cards here, and crude oil, we'll see if it can break out of that descending wedge that it's in. And that is such a simple conclusion to come to for me, Matt. It's always a good place mentally and emotionally for me to come to. It's like, okay, all the noise, all the chaos, all the craziness that's going on in the world, I can come back to the chart and still come up with a plan.
It's
Yeah,
important to understand what's happening in our world. It's important to understand the fundamental and the macro catalysts that drive price action. But at the end of the day, we had a catalyst. There's a long road to traverse there. So instead of getting too opinionated on the fundamental side of it, focus on the technicals. You got the breakout. Let's see the snapback and treat it from a technical perspective.
I like it. Any final thought from you, Mark?
No, I mean some stuff on gold, but I think we have a coach's corner question that talks about gold that we can address it when it comes up.
Let's
Okay.
light them up. In fact, why don't we move right into the coach's corner then? If we're going to be talking metals, those were the only other areas of market analysis that we were going to get into. Mark, I think you curated a couple of questions from students out there, and you also had a game that you wanted to bring to the podcast here today. What do you got from the coach's corner today?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's do those coaches corner questions. I'm going to ask Matt the question on golden margin because Matt, we've had a story that if it wasn't for Venezuela, we would have spent a lot more time with. But this, the listener asked, with CME increasing margin requirements on gold, does that change how traders should approach the metal short term? Is it smarter to step aside until volatility and positioning settle, or does this create opportunity?
Well, I have a different answer on gold than I do silver. First and foremost, we've had 2 consecutive weeks of increasing margin requirements in both silver and gold. Okay. Mark, what is the percentage of increase so far? I believe it's like 25 to 35%,
Yes.
right? Now, whenever I hear margin increases, I get a little PTSD. And I get a little PTSD because this would not be the first time that margin increases stop an environment in the commodity space. In fact, Chucky, if you go back to the first boom in commodities, it's the late 1978 to kind of the early 80s, 81, 82 area. And in 80 and 81, you started seeing margin increases, and then they got very dramatic. And what occurred? It topped out a parabolic run in gold, and gold had a massive correction. You go back to '08 and '09, And coming out of the subprime meltdown, you had a massive run on gold and silver. And it was really kind of, in both accords, it was kind of done through speculation. There wasn't a lot of real there, meaning, it was kind of, oh, subprime meltdowns happening, fear bid, right? And so you had these speculation environments that really drove silver and gold up a tremendous amount. And so when you look at the latest run in gold and you look at the latest run in silver, you knew that margin increases were going to happen. These are normal as commodities go up and up and up. It's how they cap it out. It's how they top it out. Because as for example, if silver does nothing but go up, 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 and up, and say it goes to $200 next year, well, everybody's going to have to deal with that downdrift on inflation because silver is every input cost is going to be a little bit more. And as you can see, the volatility over the last 3 months, pretty aggressive. Even though it's up, volatility is not down. Volatility is speed of movement. And when you see this expansion of volatility as it's going up, 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 that's a big difference from the volatility we were dealing with when it was back at around $30. And so you're going to see margin increases there based on volatility increases. So the ultimate question is, does this change the analysis? And it certainly gives me some caution. It certainly gives me some caution because as silver and gold go up even more, there is going to be more increases in margin. It wasn't one time in 2008 that they increased margins to top it out. It wasn't two times. You got to stop a freight train. You need more than just one data point to do that.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in the early 80s.
It's almost like the first margin increase taunts it.
Yeah. And so and so if all things being relatively equal, and if the environments were relatively equal, I would say, listen, this is going to stop this trend like an Allen Iverson pivot crossover, like just on a dime. I think it's a little different this time, to be perfectly blunt with you. I do have silver as shifting volatility. I think that needs to settle in, and that's the bigger concern in terms of the volatility and the margin increases. I don't feel that. I think they're going to have to do a bigger margin increase to stop what's been going on in gold. And the reason I say that is twofold. When I look back to '08 and '09 in silver, and I look back to the run in the '70s and the early '80s on silver and gold, those were primarily driven, not all the way, but primarily driven through speculative bets.
Hmm.
That's not the case right now. Gold is going up because every sovereign country in the world has lost their bloody mind from a debt perspective and a fiscal monetary expansion perspective. And it's the sovereign governments and it's the central banks that have been driving this demand for, as much as anybody else. It's been the biggest players in the world being the biggest buyers, including JP Morgan. And so I see it a little bit different on gold. I'm not sure anything can, and I'm not sure just margin requirements alone could stop this. I think you would have to have other things. On silver, I keep coming back to, yeah, we got some shifting volatility going on right now. I think that does put a stop on the swing trader side of the equation. I don't think that's the case in gold. I think all time frames look good in gold, but on silver, silver's been the better trend. It's been the more consistent trend. But now you're starting to see shifting volatility here. And shifting volatility is a precursor to reversal analysis, quite frankly. So I'd like to see that get played out in the short term. But at the end of the day, silver is not going up because of speculation. Silver is going up because we are in the middle of the greatest, probably most important industrial digital revolution we've ever seen in the AI build out. And the AI build out is real and it has real input cost and it has real silver in it. And so, unlike 2008 and 2009, 10, where I would say those margin increases were the death sentence to the bullish narrative in the market and gave the market a pretty good bearish narrative, quite frankly. I'm not sure that's the case here. I don't think it's the case on gold, and I think we're just seeing a little bit of short-term impact on silver. I think they're going to have to increase those margin requirements a lot more to offset not just the speculative demand, the safe haven demand, but the true, real infrastructure demand here as well.
Hmm. Mark, any thoughts on metals here
Matt
before we
just
move on?
nailed it. I like
Okay.
seriously like drop the mic. He just nailed the current atmosphere that we find ourselves in this. So
So, the volatility at the top looks wild and crazy. I mean, you guys have been talking about it for a couple of weeks here about don't overthink that noise and whatnot. In fact, I think the bullishness on the podcast predictions from last week were pretty incredible, actually. And here we are,
I had
right in the
silver at
nine.
88, Mark had it at 82, and both of us took into account margin
and
increases
both
in
of
our
us took into
projections.
account market increases.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds great. Mark, questions from Coach's Corner are next. I know this is one of my favorite things because it always brings in thoughts from our audience, our loyal listeners. If you're out there and you are listening to the podcast, we appreciate you. We love you. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow our content on all of our social channels. And one of the best ways you can ever help us is just refer it to a friend. I
Mhm.
really still believe in good old-fashioned referral, type of marketing and whatnot, help us grow our
Best way.
podcast. If you love it, I know that you know somebody that will love it. So send it over to a friend. Mark, what questions you got for today?
Well, that was one of them on gold and silver. The other one I got part for Tim and part for Matt on Bitcoin and Ethereum. From a position and trading standpoint, which do you currently prefer, Bitcoin or Ethereum? And what factors matter most when choosing beyond just price action, or is price action all that matters to you? I'm going to ask from a position trading to Matt and from an investing to Tim. Tim, you go first.
Okay, sure. Matt, show me the Bitcoin chart real quick. W pattern at the bottom on Ethereum, definitely same kind of breakout pattern on both. Since 2000, probably 15 or 16, I've been more bullish on Ethereum in general than Bitcoin. For me, just from an investment perspective, I believe in the models, I believe in what's going on here. It's not that I've necessarily pivoted on that, but I'm kind of equal weight on both, from that perspective. I really don't see them starkingly different. If you believe in one, you're probably going to believe in the other, and vice versa. Pattern wise, I'm good here on either one of them. I like a potential breakout, but if you're on an investment thesis, the short-term daily volatility is not going to impact you too much. I think you like the way that we're
Especially in
developing here,
crypto.
Matt.
Those
Yeah,
books
in crypto.
don't care about daily fluctuations.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't get wrapped up in it because it'll drive you nuts.
Good
It'll
advice
lead you
for
to the
any
wrong
asset you
conclusions.
invest in, by the way.
Yeah. So if I had to pick one or the other, Mark, I'm still going to probably lean to Ethereum on a slight margin just because I've always, and that might be my own bias on that. I've been that way since 2015. But I like their patterns here.
I have preferred Ethereum in almost every technical pattern up until this week, and I really think they're kind of sixes here. I think it's the dealer's choice, quite frankly, and I think they're running on a very similar gasoline right now. I've been impressed with the consistency of the levels between 85 and 95 on Bitcoin. It's been very well technically behaved, and so I think the only conclusion here from the position standpoint is, do you get a close above 95? Does that close above the 50 period moving average? And are you playing the pocket up to the 200-day moving average? And I think that starts with the close. We in the lounge today, we talked about exactly what to expect here for about 20 minutes. Not going to do it in the pod, but I'll just say this. The conclusion of the team was give us a 2-3 bar high base, bring that 50 to 95K, and let's get it up and go on a breakout here on IBIT. Ethereum, very similar, very similar. Very well behaved, very good reversal playing out here. And the only difference in the Ethereum versus the Bitcoin chart is Ethereum had a fake out, and that dirtied up the joint a little bit. So Bitcoin has a cleaner chart right now. I like them both. I think it's dealer's choice, but Bitcoin does have a cleaner chart. From specifically a position style perspective, once again, both of them are in the pocket. I do prefer Ethereum on the position trade though. Swing trade, sixes, position trade, I prefer Ethereum.
Love it. Yeah. Great. Love hearing the crypto question, Marky. Great pick on that one. Any other ones?
And one other one, and it was asked a lot fancier than this, but I'll ask Matt. Does the unemployment report matter on Friday? And the
It
question was
depends
asked
on your
much fancier
perspective.
than that.
I would think. We talked about this quite a bit in the futures open last night, but I'll just summarize. I think it's important for the market. I don't think it's as important for the central bank and making their monetary decisions as the market is expecting. I think the central bank is smart enough to realize that this unemployment report is not going to be the fundamental truth of the labor market environment in totality. I think they're going to use more data than just this. And so I think this is the last data point in the cycle before the Fed makes decisions. I don't think it's that report personally. Is it important? Yes, it's the labor market report. It's the number one most important economic report we get on a month in, month out basis. But to me, the truth of the report will be in the revisions, not in the release of the numbers.
You lost me at the central bank is smart enough.
Whether you agree with it or not, the
My
central bank
brain
is full of a lot of smart people.
is full of a lot of academics.
Uh, Listen, I criticize Jay Powell as much as the next guy. I'm not going to question his intelligence.
Um,
Maybe
Matt, Matt,
decision making,
this is
maybe
an
giving into
ongoing
political
minor debate
pressure.
between Matt and I, Tim, for the last year and a
Okay.
half on the podcast.
Mark thinks the central bank is full of a bunch of idiots,
I
and
do.
I think they're full of smart people who give in to political pressure.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty. You really think they're not intelligent, Mark,
I
or
think they're academics out of tune with what is happening in the current
that's
modern era.
a different statement. I think
Jay Powell's far more than an academic.
these are intelligent people for
Yeah.
Jay
sure.
Powell's
We might
about out of
disagree
a
with
job.
everything
Jay Powell's about a victim of the Donroe Doctrine, which includes
they're.
I personally would put it as a 6, 5, 7, somewhere on that scale on the importance of the labor market. I do think it's the most important economic report this week. But I can I can I have a hot take?
Yeah,
yes.
hot take it up. Let's go.
I'm more interested in what the announcements out of the Consumer Electronics conference this week in Las Vegas are than the labor market on Thursday on
What?
Friday.
Just talk briefly about that. What is that all about?
The CES, the annual CES is happening this week, and with technology sitting in a symmetrical triangle, I'm very keen on catalysts that will propel a breakout of this triangle on the tech space. And so to me, I certainly think labor is going to have a lot of impact. I'm not trying to throw cold water on it too much, but I just feel like you're going to get some big time announcements out of the CES this week. Jensen just gave a speech literally today talking about how they're going to be embracing robotics literally this year. And the conference this year is based on AI and robotics and talking about because everything on the AI side so far in terms of public facing has been on the digital side of the equation. It's been on the LLMs, the learning management systems, ChatGPT, Grok, and so on and so forth. Robotics is certainly has already had an impact on the industrial side of the equation. But what it hasn't had an impact is on the consumer side of the equation. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if there's any important updates on robotics and automation coming out of the CES number one. And then there's obviously, I don't think you're going to get semiconductor announcements out of NVIDIA. I think they're going to wait on their conference in March for that. But I am looking forward to, like, is there, and one of the things I'm looking forward to, is there any companies that are off the radar that are now starting to get a little love out there on some of their new advancements in technology? So, I think the CES Consumer Electronics Conference in Vegas is going to be fairly interesting. It's obviously not going to be a broad market conversation there, but you know, does any major announcements happen to propel a little bit of a breakout here?
Sure. Yeah, that's fascinating, actually. You know, anyway, I can't go back past what Mark was saying about how there's no intelligence on the central bank, but
Listen, I
yeah,
criticize the central bank as much as anybody, and
yeah,
I'm sorry, they're smart people. They
correct.
have a different perspective. They have different data points. I don't want to question their intelligence, though.
100%. All
Decision
right.
making, yes. Critical thinking, absolutely. Natural intelligence, accomplished people.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Mark, last thing, I think you had a little game
Mark
planned
did not
for the
want to
three of
embrace
us.
the slight respect for the central bank
No,
intelligence.
I reject it completely. I reject it
I
completely.
Mark, the crazy part is I agree with him. They are a bunch of academics. Um, but I would still say intelligent.
I think they'll get the AI thing completely wrong. And
They're
then
already getting the AI thing wrong. That's
I
not
know because they're
very
not
good at it.
smart.
Mark, then everybody in the world's dumb because most people are not getting ahead of the AI thing.
You know, so
Which one's which? The dog or the tail here?
China's getting ahead of the
AI
AI
or the
game.
people running from it? Like, so I get it, but tell me
All
a
right.
sovereign country in the world that is getting AI right now.
I think China is doing the best
You have
with
no
what they
clue
have.
what China is doing with AI.
Well, no, because I am not a tech
You
expert.
have the headlines
I do
of
have the
what they're doing.
headlines. They got the resources, but you know who's catching up on resources? The Donroe. The Donroe Doctrine is catching up on resources. And I have a couple colonial truths in a lie to finish out the podcast. We're
Okay,
gonna
we're
play.
still going on the colonial theme here.
We're gonna play two Trumps in a lie. In honor of the Donroe Doctrine. There's two truthful statements and one lie in these colonial-based questions to honor our new expansionist, attitude that we apparently have here in the United States of America recently. Are you ready to play two truths and a lie?
Yeah.
I would love to. Yep.
All right. So, Tim, you go first on this one. All right.
Okay.
What is the lie? Britain replaced Spain as the dominant colonial power of the 19th century. By the 19th century, France maintained major colonial holdings in Africa and Southeast Asia. Russia's empire expanded mainly through overseas island colonies. What is the lie in those three?
The lie is about them overcoming Spain because wasn't it the Dutch that
I
were
still think
that
it's
they?
Spain. We
I'm
had this, me and Tim had this debate 3 seconds before we went live in the pod. I, s- I, I have not looked up. I still think it was Spain. I think it was Spain because it's either the Dutch or the Spain that the Brits took over. But I do
yeah.
think it was Spain. I think the Dutch were before Spain. Um, and I think it went Spain, then it went to England, and then it came to the almighty United States dollar. But I'm gonna say so. Tim, your guess is Spain is the
My guess
is
the first one was the lie. Yeah, I think
okay.
that they overcame the
I'm gonna
Dutch, and I
go
don't think
with
it was Spain.
I don't know the other two, the French colonization efforts and the Russian colonization efforts. But if I had to say, I'd say the lie does sound like Russia because it's like they just built colonialism through islands.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They expanded well, but he's talking 19th century. He's not talking modern. He's talking czars back in the day. So I'm gonna say, and I think I might be overthinking this one, but I'm gonna say the
Hmm.
lie is France.
You are both wrong. The lie was Russia's empire
It's Russia.
expanding mainly
Okay.
through overseas island colonies,
I
which
was
they
debating.
did
I'm
not
sixing on
do
those two.
that. That was more of a British thing in the 19th century. And Britain did overcome Spain as the dominant global colonial power back then, which now belongs to the United States of America, apparently. Next one
We'll
has
never
to,
give it up.
you always give
Never
it
gonna
up.
give you up. Never gonna let you
Next
down.
one
We're
deals
never gonna
with
let you down, guys. Promise. Promise. Promise.
in honor of our new vassal country, Venezuela, the next one deals with Venezuela. What statement is the lie? Venezuela was colonized by Spain in the early 1500s. Simon Bolivar played a central role in Venezuela's independence. Venezuela gained independence peacefully through negotiations with Spain.
I did not know I was going to have to understand the historical narrative of Venezuela today, but let's work this one out, T.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
So,
Yeah.
which one is the lie in the foundation of Venezuela as a country? Okay. My question to you, young man, is what percentage of Venezuela population could have answered this question?
Well, none of them are on the podcast right now.
Okay. So give me
So
the three again. I'll go first. Tim went first.
Venezuela was colonized by Spain in the early 1500s. Simon Bolivar played a central role in Venezuela's independence, and Venezuela gained independence peacefully through negotiations with Spain.
Okay. Give them
I'm
to
gonna
me again. I'm thinking through. Hold on. No, no, no. I'm
like
thinking
I'm
through
just
this.
trying to
I
critical
want to get
think
this
these
right.
ones.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
1 and 3 have to be like they don't have to be, but if Mark's third answer or statement was they took it from Spain and his first one was did he take from Spain, both of them have to be true. One can't be
Right.
unless there was, but which what I'm saying is the first one has to be true, or he wouldn't ask the third one. So I have no clue on the historical. I'm just saying from a logical perspective there, which means it's either 2 or 3. Either one, they had a bloody battle with Spain, or two, some dude named Simon had an influence here. By the way, this reminds me of an LSAT question where you had a game theory.
Mhm.
um, I'm gonna go with C,
Okay.
although
Yeah.
I'm not confident.
I'm saying A
Slightly on
was the
B.
lie. I don't think Spain ever conquered anything.
Venezuela gaining independence peacefully through negotiations is the obvious lie because whoever does it
Yeah,
peacefully,
it's always bloody.
Yeah, fair
So I
enough.
get a
it's
point.
always bloody. You get a point.
I get a
Matt
point.
won it.
Okay.
All right. Final question on
All right.
low. We're going to deal with oil and Venezuela, our new vassal state from the
Okay.
United States of America. What statement is the lie? Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world.
Okay.
Much of Venezuela's oil is heavy crude, requiring complex refining.
Okay.
Venezuela economy was historically diversified away from energy exports. Which of those is the lie?
I always want to repeat. I'm thinking through these. Give me
Venezuela
three
holds
again.
the largest oil reserves in the world.
Okay.
Much of Venezuela's oil is heavy crude, requiring complex refining. Or
Okay.
Venezuela's economy was historically diversified away from energy exports.
Hmm. I think the third one's the lie. I don't think that they diversified away from energy exports. I think they've always been dependent upon it.
Venezuela is the
They
number
might have tried
one in terms of reserve.
reserve. Yeah, I think
Number
that one's true.
two, they are a heavy oil producing country. They are not that pure light sweet crude. There's only one location in the world that produces that light sweet crude, and that is Western Texas and a little bit of Louisiana. But that's a U.S. theme. So I'm going to go C as well.
Yep. So Matt wins 2-1, but you both got on the board there with a nice oil question to end the podcast.
I like it. I like
Okay.
these questions. That second
Nice.
question was unfair.
You got the second question right.
Not the point.
Seemed off.
I had to work.
Uh,
I had to work really hard. I had to turn on that critical thinking game theory.
That's why they call it a game.
Yeah.
If only the Fed
okay.
had that critical thinking theory, we'd be better off.
So I
I
got
ain't
two
gonna
truths
fight
and
you
a
on
lie.
that one. They struggle with the critical thinking side of it.
So two truths and a lie. I'm gonna have pizza for dinner. I'm making beef stroganoff, or I'm doing leftover chicken parm.
So two,
There's
two
two
of the
lies and a
three are
truth.
true.
Sorry, two lies and a
I was gonna
truth.
say,
Yeah.
like you're having two meals. Like you
Dude, Louis C.K. We're gonna go double it
He
up.
he's doing the first number two, and then he's gonna do number three at 11.
There you go. Yeah, I'm actually making beef stroganoff tonight. I haven't made it in a
I'm gonna
long
go
time.
beef stroganoff. Beef.
Yeah, there you go. I jumped the gun, gave it to Marky. He was already gonna get it anyway. All right, guys, that's fun though. I appreciate that. That was a fun little game for the podcast. Thanks for putting that together, Mark. Guys, that's it for our show today. Love the analysis, love the conversation. If you're out there, you're watching the podcast, make sure that before you check out of this channel, like it, subscribe it, leave a comment, share it, do something with it. Any interaction helps us promote the podcast, helps us grow. We love coming together each and every week and talking markets with you guys. Matt, you've got an event tonight to prepare for, so I know you got to get going here pretty quick. But for those of you who didn't make it and want to come watch the replay, what are you talking about there at Tackle Trading in
I'm
the latest?
talking naked puts, bull puts, bear calls, creative cash flow strategies using the Tackle 25.
Awesome. And make sure that you go and visit tackletrading.com to get the latest, special pricing from our store. We've got our event going on until the 10th of January. Lock in your education for the year of 2026. Get the best pricing you can. Don't hesitate. We'd love to see you guys become a part of that community. Outside of that, guys, have a wonderful rest of your week. Happy New Year, and we'll see you on the other side.
Later, team.